As a member of AmCham, how AmCham Chamber benefits JP Morgan?
Well, in a few different ways. Firstly, the Chamber has helped us in relation to regulatory issues that we face here in Malaysia, and collectively with other US financial institutions, the Chamber has worked with us in order to get our message across to the regulator in order to assist us in addressing a number of these issues which we find challenging in the country. So the Chamber's been very helpful in that regard.
Excellent. And a quick question, Malaysia, how do you think it benefits American businesses?
Well, a lot of US companies come to Malaysia largely because of the laws in Malaysia being an English law-based system attracts US companies. It's very good for intellectual property protection, for example. Costs are fairly low, so it's relatively cheap to operate here. Education standards are relatively high. The use of English is very good here. So, based on all those issues, it does attract American investors into the country.
Malaysia is recommended. Thank you, Steve.
Thank you.
How does Herbalife benefit as a member of AmCham?
Well, firstly, we're happy to be a member of AmCham because we like how they're able to organize conferences such as what we're having today to bring peers together, where we dialogue, we discuss about the economies, what's going on with the country, how we can leverage on each other's knowledge and experience on how to basically grow together in Malaysia. And AmCham is also able to open doors to meet up with very key influencers in the country, such as like today with Dr. Mahathir, to provide us an update of the future of the country that helps us in decision making, which is very critical for us in deciding the future direction of what resources or investments we want to put into the country.
Excellent. And last question, why do US businesses like Malaysia?
Well, being a Malaysian myself, there's so much reasons to like Malaysia, right? The political stability, the market size is a good size as well. The education level, accessibility, the stability of infrastructure. You could see many developments going on, and all the various government agencies working their best to provide us the infrastructure support for us to really grow and blossom in Malaysia.
Thank you, Stephen.
Pleasure.
Why is AmCham important for Avis?
AmCham is very important to Avis Malaysia because the opportunity of networking. From because of membership with AmCham, we got to know all the American company registered with AmCham. Yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah.
It's networking.
Yeah, networking definitely.
Very important.
Very important.
Okay. And then the last question will be. We've only got two quick ones here. US businesses. US businesses. Why do US businesses like Malaysia so much? Ibrahim, why do you think that American businesses like Malaysia so much?
Definitely because of the business environment, the opportunity. Yes. Because in Malaysia, we got agriculture, we got industrial, we got engineering. Most everything, we have in Malaysia. The opportunity is there. Even let's say currently we are also good in pharmaceuticals. You see, because the opportunity is bring American to Malaysia.
Yes.
Yeah.
Do you think they also like the food?
Definitely, nasi lemak, teh tarik, definitely. So, yeah.
Thank you, Ibrahim.
Welcome.
Question: why do you think American businesses love Malaysia?
Yeah, I think Malaysia is a fantastic place, very business friendly. The government is very, very open and engaging. I think that is actually the core why most American companies prefer to base in Malaysia.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Have a good lunch. Why do you think American businesses love Malaysia so much?
Well, and I can give you our experience in selecting Malaysia as our office for Asia Pacific. So we're a Houston company, and the Malaysian location is for Asia Pacific. There are several reasons. One, it was a set of commercial laws that we were quite familiar with, so it's quite easily understood. I'm Australian, so it's quite similar to what we see in Australia. Location, if you actually look at Malaysia in respect to Asia Pacific, it's very centrally located. So quite literally I can ship to within 10 days to any port in Australia or Asia. I can drive to Singapore, up to Penang, across the east coast, fly into Jakarta to Thailand. So it's very centrally located. Cost of doing business here was very attractive for us. So Singapore was quite a common destination, I think, for a lot of American or Western companies. Malaysia, I think, is becoming more attractive from a cost basis. So for us, having quite a large office here, we import, export, we promote into Malaysia, etc. So the cost of doing business was quite attractive. I think that would be the main factors that we went through a process of evaluating the whole region. The English language, and if you look at Thailand, English is not as well spoken, whereas in Malaysia, the English language, it was a package of all of it. I think Malaysia is not the top of many of the indices, but it's in the top quartile of all of them. And that spread makes it a very attractive investment destination.
Thanks, Aaron. And one last question. I'm sure the Chamber would like to know. Does AmCham work for you?
Look, it does. There's the obvious networking side of AmCham, and I do participate in that quite strongly. There's the leverage I get from the AmCham's reach in the region. So we recently moved a facility. We went from Shah Alam to Petaling Jaya. A couple of guys attended from AmCham. We wrote an announcement, they put it on theirs, and that really increased our reach, our profile. It expanded our audience quite dramatically, because that's what we're here to do. We're here to create a brand and let people know what we're doing. They're the main areas. I do participate to a lesser degree with the getting access to government, things like that. In fact, using the US Embassy has been more useful for that, but then AmCham and the Embassy work very closely together. So a couple of times where I've had a sticky situation, I've been able to leverage those relationships to get them to help me resolve those sticky situations that I've encountered.
Thanks, Aaron. That's great. How does Samtec benefit from being a member of AmCham?
All right. I'm actually a financial controller. So a lot of the regulations changes from Malaysia, from US, and you can get the first-hand information from AmCham. And our member, they share information. So all are very useful, especially during these dynamic times since last year.
Thanks, Mr. Lim. Fabian, as a member of AmCham, what benefit do you see yourself, the Samtec organisation, getting?
Well, being part of the chambers, we have benefited from getting pretty much first-hand information, especially when it comes to any legislation changes. Okay. AmCham is a very, very strong organization that helps us, American companies here in Malaysia, speak to the government for us, and also to get insights on any specific law changes or anything like that. That will actually benefit us while we navigate ourselves through the Malaysian government.
A good vehicle for networking?
It is a fantastic vehicle for networking.
Thanks very much.
You're welcome.
Have a good lunch.
Same to you.
Why did Brockham choose Malaysia?
Yeah, good question. The reason, I think one of the key reasons why Brockham chose Malaysia, partly because most of our suppliers actually located in Asia. And from Brockham, we are doing a semiconductor assembly and test, and it's much easier for us to manage all those suppliers out from Penang, which is very competitive, and then we are able to hire a lot of talented staff to manage all those back-end assembly and test suppliers. So I think this is one of the key reasons why we choose Malaysia.
And is AmCham a good chamber for you?
Yeah, of course. AmCham is always a good venue for us to go and find out the latest government policy and interact with all those AmCham members to get the latest information in the market, not only in the semiconductor industry, but also in many, many other industries.
Oh, thanks, Mr. Lau. Okay. Have a good lunch.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks. Nelson, could you tell us, please, how Four Seasons benefits as a member of AmCham?
As a member, we work with so many companies, both locally and globally as a brand. So this gives us up-close personal relationships, and that's what it's about. In the community that you operate and that you do business, to have these relationships with big multinational corporations is natural for us around the world. So
Excellent.
We do it here. It's lovely.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Are you enjoying Malaysia?
Yes, definitely enjoying Malaysia. It is a fantastic place to live.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining us today. I've been given strict instructions by Shaban, our AMCHAM director, that I have to read every single word of these 3 pages. So please bear with me as I go through them, because if I forget one single thing, I'm going to be in big trouble. So bear with me a little bit. Yang Amat Berhamad Tun Dr. Mahathir bin Mohamad, Prime Minister of Malaysia, the Honorable Kamala Shireen Lakadir, best US Ambassador in the world, and distinguished guests and members. It's an honor to welcome you all to the AMCHAM's 2019 Annual General Meeting Luncheon. Many thanks to those of you that have participated in AMCHAM's 42nd AGM this morning, and helping us to ensure that our chamber is subject to the same good governance practices that our members adhere to in their own organizations. Ladies and gentlemen, AMCHAM is also honored to host Prime Minister Tun Dr. Mahathir bin Mohamad, who's joining us for the 2nd time since his election as Malaysia's Prime Minister back in May 2018. We really greatly appreciate your attendance today and are thankful for making time in your incredibly busy schedule. And we know how busy you are. We meet with all your staff all the time, and they tell us you don't go home before midnight every day. So we know how hard you work. Last June, I emphasized that the economic leadership between Malaysia and the US is deeply significant. Not only in terms of net trade and investment figures, but also in terms of longevity and mutual commitment to shared growth and prosperity. Your presence with us today, this afternoon, is a testament to the ongoing strength of this relationship and your government's recognition of the importance of the US business community's long-standing relationship and investments in Malaysia. As Tun is familiar with AMCHAM, I won't repeat much about our community and the valuable economic contributions that our 260 members make to the Malaysian economy through their job creation, skills transfer, through their vendor development programs, and the introduction of new technologies that drive Malaysia towards the digital age in both the services and advanced manufacturing industries. Tun, I wanted to take this opportunity to highlight some of the specific investment made by a few of our member companies over the past year. And this is not a comprehensive list, just a few examples, but it does demonstrate the variety investment areas and the multiple industries that we are helping to advance in the value chain. First, I'd like to highlight Accenture has selected Malaysia for the establishment of a number of regional delivery centers, creating several thousand new and well-paid jobs. Then we have General Electric. They announced a major investment in their maintenance, repair, and overhaul facility for jet engines in Subang, as well as a global IT service desk based out of Malaysia. Then we have Microsoft. They have confirmed the creation of an applied artificial intelligence center in partnership with MIMOS to support Malaysia's adoption of cloud technologies and development towards high-tech industry status. Then ExxonMobil, who further expanded its footprint in Malaysia by growing its Kuala Lumpur Technology Center that serves its affiliates worldwide. More than 100 engineering positions were added, and we expect this rate of expansion to continue for the next couple of years. Then we have Smart Modular. They have chosen Malaysia as its base for a global supply chain management center. And they're employing 90 highly skilled Malaysians capable of leveraging big data, cloud computing, and real-time analytics technology. Then we go to MetLife, and I don't have to read this because it's my company. They're building a center of excellence based in Malaysia and to support all of Asia, and we have about 80 positions that will be hired for Malaysians. Also, about $1 billion US have been invested in Malaysia. 500 million of them since 2014. 500 million of them is invested in corporate bonds, and roughly the remainder in Malaysian corporate bonds. Also, we have the shared services for IT, all based in Malaysia. And I'd like to also, I just found out today that MetLife Foundation approved funding to program and encourage entrepreneurship for rural schools in Malaysia for the B40 population as well. When it comes to Coca-Cola, Coca-Cola has continued to implement a 500 million investment, additional to the 1 billion already invested in Malaysia since 2010. This latest investment expands the size and production capacity of their plant in Bandar Ansatek to include a state-of-the-art automated warehouse facility, technical training for warehouse associates to monitor, control, and optimize the productivity of the new logistics software. It can also boast to have one of the largest solar rooftop installations in the region. Schmidt Abrasive Blasting is a supplier of abrasive blasting equipment to the oil and gas industry. They have opened a new facility in Pitling Jaya with much larger space for manufacturing, warehousing, showroom, and employee training. Last but by no means least, AIG. AIG has expanded and enhanced its shared services capabilities based in Malaysia, introducing high-value added technologies to handle claims for security services and emerging cyber risk across Asia and Australasia, as well as hiring a team of local doctors to handle highly complex medical travel assistance for customers traveling anywhere in the world. I hope that this gives you a flavor tune of some of the exciting new initiatives AmCham member companies in Malaysia who continue to value Malaysia as an attractive investment destination due to its business-friendly regulatory environment and a strong pool of local talent and cultural diversity. We look forward to further investments over the coming year. For example, ON Semiconductor has finalized plans for a 1 billion ringgit expansion in Negari Sembilan. They will create an amazing 2,400 new jobs for that. So I expect that some further announcements will be made soon. In the recent trade and investment mission to the United States by MITI Minister Dato Darrell Laking has generated potential investments worth 6.6 billion ringgits, mainly in key projects with the E&E and chemical industries. I'd also like to highlight the latest 2018 version of My AmCham Cares. This booklet, which has been placed on all the tables, basically US companies, as part of their investment, deliver many robust CSR and programs that directly impact their immediate community, as well as support of the country's own development targets. Our program has been growing from strength to strength as a platform for members to exchange best practices and think strategically about how to create sustainable CSR programs in Malaysia. You'll see in the latest booklet that, much like the midterm review of the 11th Malaysia Plan, we have begun to track down how our members' activities relate to Malaysia's progress towards the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. Toon, thank you once again for engagement with AmCham. Please be assured that our member companies and executive team, we look forward to continue engaging the government and to offer practical recommendations to develop policies that can support a strong and innovative business environment. We, like you, envisage a Malaysia that is equipped to embrace opportunities, emerging through new technologies, and to navigate through global uncertainties. As we always remind our government counterparts, our aim is to conduct a productive two-way dialogue. And we always welcome the opportunity to work with the government on any areas where they have identified a need for private sector inputs. I wish you all an excellent lunch, and I very much look forward to hearing from our Prime Minister after lunch, and then to hear Toon's updates for the US business community. But before I end, if you allow me to just take 30 seconds to 1 minute, Toon, I remember the story was going in Malaysia. I remember the story that Nelson Mandela went through in South Africa. And as you know, one of the first things he did when he took power is he brought the Secret Service, he brought a lot of white people because he wanted to promote that we are one nation going forward. And they were going to a restaurant. And when they went to that restaurant, a guy saw President Nelson Mandela and he immediately tried to leave. And he had a look of fear on his face. And then Mr. Mandela recognized him. And he asked him to join them for lunch, because he took his secret detail for lunch to celebrate when he first was elected. And the guy was very uncomfortable to be on that seat. And not only that, Mr. Mandela invited him to sit next to him. And the guy was trembling and shaking throughout the whole lunch. And then finally, when the moment he finished his lunch, he asked President Mandela if he can leave the table because he really needs to go. So after he left, the Secret Service asked Mr. Mandela, wow, he was so intimidated by your presence that he was shaking. And then Mr. Mandela told them, oh, no, I know him very well. They said, oh, how do you know him? He said, well, he used to be in my prison. He used to be the security guard in my prison. And every time they used to torture me, when I asked for a drink, he used to urinate on me. So basically, they all asked him and said, wow. And then he told them, always remember that the mentality of mob retaliation destroys states, while the mentality of tolerance builds nations. So thank you so much, everybody. And looking forward to you. Thank you.
Your Excellency Kamal Ashwin Daktir, as Ambassador to Malaysia, Mr. Ramzi Tubasi, President of AMCHAM, Governors of AMCHAM, Captains of Industries and Honored Guests, ladies and gentlemen. Firstly, I would like to say thank you for the reference made to American investments in Malaysia. I hope it is well publicized, because some people have doubts about the new government. I think we need some publicity about people investing in Malaysia. So thank you very much for mentioning that. Ladies and gentlemen, it is indeed a pleasure to be back here with the American Malaysian Chamber of Commerce, or AMCHAM. It has been almost 1 year since I last sat with AMCHAM, and I can assure you that I am sure you would have noticed as well that it had been a long, tough and very challenging time. In less than a month, this government will be celebrating our first anniversary, and we have spent the better part. We have spent the better part of the year to clean up the mess created by one MDP. As we struggled to make real sense of the scandal, we discovered the damage was more extensive than expected, and along the way we uncovered that the other pillars of our economy were compromised as badly, if not worse. Nevertheless, much as it seems that the new government inherited is to have its work cut out for it, I believe that we have turned a corner, and we look forward to finally sit to finally sit down and pursue our plans instead of merely being tied down to mopping up and cleaning up the mess. We are here to provide you the investment conditions and business environment conducive to your continued growth and development in Malaysia. If I remember correctly, last year I asked for the support of the American investment community to help us rebuild the market. And it is truly encouraging for me to hear about some of the new investments that have been made by AMCHAM members over the past year in high value added, high technology and high skill business domains. We have recently received annual reports from various government agencies that are responsible for attracting foreign investments into Malaysia and enhancing Malaysia's trade ties. These reports contain some very encouraging figures on the prominent role that US investment continues to play in the Malaysian economy, as you have done for many decades before. According to these reports, in 2018, the US was Malaysia's third largest trading partner in the world, and total trade exceeded 155 billion Malaysian ringgit. Exports from Malaysia to the US increased to more than 90 billion ringgit, which was the highest value in more than a decade. Of the 78 MNCs under InvestKL, 20 of them are from the US. This is by far the biggest for any single country. The next one has only half the number. In the manufacturing space, the US is the second foreign investor in Malaysia. Projects that US companies have implemented are valued at almost 22 billion US dollar. It is second only to Japan. At your AGM last year, I shared with you the new government's plans on institutional reforms which are intended to strengthen our institutions. A system of governance that is based on integrity and trustworthiness. In effect, it will provide you with the stability and predictability needed to make long-term investment decisions. We have made good our promise. This government has successfully introduced very significant reforms. We have created within the Prime Minister's office the National Center for Governance, Integrity and Anti-Corruption, or GIACC. This body has been tasked with working towards 21 specific pledges within our Pakatan Harapan manifesto relating to governance, integrity and fighting corruption. And it is a key instrument for the government as we work to ensure best practices in governance and a level playing field for all investors in this country. To further support this objective, we have been working to enshrine the independence of the judiciary and protect the judicial system from undue influence and interference. The media has been unshackled. Since the new government took over, efforts are being undertaken to relieve them of restrictive legislation and governmental control, leading them to self-regulate. No more do their editors get calls or what we describe here as receiving revelations from the government on how or what they should be reporting on what they can't. I am sure you would notice how the Malaysian media today reports almost anything that they want. We seem to be a popular target of the newfound freedom, but that is all right as long as they report the truth. The National Anti-Corruption Plan that was launched earlier this year, the execution of which of the 115 initiatives in the plan will need the involvement of all Malaysians from all segments of society, analysts and all wage earners. Take a look at the NACP. You will realize how serious we are in wanting to put a stop to corruption and the abuse of power. It must be pointed out that the investment community has an important role in combating corruption. I have raised this matter elsewhere, and I wish to make the request to AMCHAM as well to please do not buy shares or cut deals with businessmen and directors whose companies are involved in corrupt practices. We have also empowered the Election Commission and the Malaysian Anti-Corruption Agency. Efforts are in progress to ensure transparency in political funding, strengthening the Parliament, the National Audit Department, reforming the electoral system, and much more. All these are being done with very clear objective, regardless which party leads the government or who becomes the Prime Minister in the future. Malaysia will never again end up a kleptocracy. Ladies and gentlemen, AMCHAM has been one of the most active dialogue partners for the government over the past year. I believe that by now you have met with almost all of my cabinet ministers, and through the dialogues and from your recommendations, I believe we have been able to respond to some of your most pressing concerns and ensure that new policies are encouraging to the business community. For example, we took the decision to provide good relief for taxable imported services, and we have recently responded to your concern around foreign exchange administration rules so that it is easier for MNCs to conduct dollar transactions with your local Malaysian vendors. I know that you have also been actively involved in the consultation process around our reforms to the Employment Act, Trade Union Act, and the Industrial Relations Act, and I hope that you have found this government open to recommendations as we improve our labor laws and align them with international best practices. I also spoke last year about the need for the government to ensure that the Malaysian workforce can provide the necessary skills and talents necessary for further investment in high-tech industries. We have launched our industry forward national policy, our national policy on Industry 4.0, and we recognize the critical role played by foreign investors from the US and elsewhere in transferring cutting-edge skills and technologies to Malaysia as we transition along this developmental journey. Indeed, as I look around the room, I see American firms, but very few expatriates. They all have black hair. I see Malaysian leaders and managers running these American companies in Malaysia. The American investment has gone beyond building factories into people and talent development. We are aware that AMCHAM's community programs have developed Malaysian small businesses as suppliers, taught entrepreneurship to Malaysian youth, and volunteers from your high-tech firms have monitored Malaysian students in science and have mentored Malaysian students in science and mathematics. We know that talent will be the key differentiator as foreign investors make their deployment decisions over the coming years. And we understand that we, the government, must equip our younger generation with the core competencies to prepare them for the industries of tomorrow. Talent development is critical for our shared future, and with a small nation like ours, every person counts towards raising the productivity of the nation. Developing Malaysia's talent pool, whether through traditional education, structured and industry-driven technical and vocational education and training, or TVET programs, or simply on-the-job training and development, is a shared endeavor that needs cooperation between the public and private sectors. Apart from TVET, science, technology, engineering and mathematics, or STEM graduates will be increased by making it more accessible, experiential and meaningful. They too will fit the demands of the future. We are pushing for bigger reforms, and they can be expected once the Special Task Force have reviewed in entirety our education policies. From preschool to tertiary, complete their findings next month. The reforms, among others, will touch on several key areas: English language, quality of teachers, and the employability of graduates. For another, and the government has also amended the Universities and University College Act to give more freedom to the students. To sum up, it has been a year of consolidation, rehabilitation, and resetting our nation. We are also conscious that we can't develop if we don't grow our economy. Therefore, we are committed in ensuring our policies are investor-friendly to both foreign and domestic investors. The government will strive to continue our engagement with multinationals like you. As we take your viewpoints into consideration, in turn, you will continue to view Malaysia as a favored, strategic and profitable investment destination for US businesses now and in the years to come. On that note, I would like to thank AMCHAM for inviting me to address you once again. I recall that your members were keen about asking questions, so I look forward to an engaging Q&A session. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll stop here. We invite you to take a seat on stage for the Q&A session, which will be moderated by Mr. Steve Clayton, Vice President of AMCHAM.
But the simple answer, of course, is not to eat too much. When you grow fat, then you have problems. Your heart has to do more work. If the heart can last to 90 years, if you are fat, I think your longevity would be threatened. Thank you.
So he says the medical doctor, so I suggest everybody listens to him as well.
One thing that Ramsey didn't mention during his introduction was that, in fact, JP Morgan is also investing 650 million ringgit into the country. He mentions his competitor, AIG, and yet he doesn't mention JP Morgan, so thank you for that, Ramsey. Anyway, the first question, Tun, if I can ask you, everybody's interested in CPTPP, which is the new version of the old TPP. I think we're waiting to see if the Malaysian government is going to ratify CPTPP. What's your position on it?
I sat down to discuss this matter with a number of officials from different ministries. Apparently they are still not quite happy with what would happen if they join the TPP. We have certain policies in this country directed at trying to equalize or reduce the disparity between different communities. This is very special to us because we have to try and bring up the Bumiputras to the level of the other races. But to do that, we need to have certain, we need to be unfair to some races, or seemingly unfair. And this has caused a lot of problem because there are quite a lot of protests against that. But I think we will, in time, we will be able to ratify this TPP. Thank you.
May I open this to the floor now, and are there questions from the floor? If you have a question, please put your hand up, and we'll single you out, and you can identify yourself and then ask the question. Are there any hands there? Or is that just cameras up in the air over there? Yeah, it looks like cameras. Let me ask another question then, Tun. You know, in terms of the new government, are you happy with, two questions really, are you happy with the performance of your ministers? And you mentioned the other day, in fact, you were quoted in the newspapers as saying the biggest issue for you over the past year has actually been holding together the coalition. Is this an issue? You know, should we be worried about this? Because we are concerned about succession going forward and having a strong government as investors in this country.
Well, we were in the opposition before. All we knew is how to criticize the government. But when they became the government, they still felt as if they are in the opposition. They are very confused about having to be business friendly, for example. They used to be critical of the government, but their policies, now they have to soften the line and to be friendly with people. But I think in the short time that they have become ministers, they have proven that they can actually adjust to a new environment. But I think it may take a little time more before they feel comfortable as government and forget about their past as the opposition. For the opposition, you can criticize anything, but government have to do things, and immediately you do something, there will be somebody who's not happy. So we have to teach our ministers to be patient and not to get angry over criticism. But anyway, I think they have held together, as pointed out the last time, for a long time now, almost a year. And I think coming from 5 different parties with different objectives, that they are still together is an achievement in itself. Thank you.
In fact, just really on the same topic, but 3 by-elections since the government was elected, and sadly you lost all 3 by-elections. There's another by-election coming up on the 11th of May in Sandakan. Does it worry you that you've lost these by-elections? And any predictions for Sandakan?
Well, we are going to win in Sarakan. But, you know, when a government is formed and it is only a by-election, people know that they won't change the government through this election. They are comfortable, I think, with us, but they want to see more criticisms of the government coming from the opposition, and they are entitled to, this time around, to give some power, some leverage to the opposition. Previously, the opposition was the government. But the fact is that these by-elections are due to a lot of wrongdoings during the election time in the 14th general election. We have to correct that, and because of that, we have gone to the courts, for example, and the courts declared that the election was null and void, so we have to hold another election. And I think these three, we forgot to mention that we won in
oh yes, there was one. That was politics, and sorry.
So not too bad. But in Sarakan, the picture is quite different. We are more comfortable with it, and we think we can win that election. We were, the man who died was a very popular man, and I think he can hold, I mean, the people have not changed their attitude so much with regard to the party he represented. Thank you.
Okay, we have a question here on the table here. Would you like to introduce yourself, please?
Hi, hello, I'm Anusha from AMCHAMHYATT Live, and firstly I'd just like to, I'm over here, it's small, but I just wanted to say it's such a great honor to be here in the same forum as you are, Tun. And I'm not going to go into politics. I'm a big Grand Prix fan, and you mentioned previously that there was, one of your aspirations was to bring back the Grand Prix to Malaysia. So just interested to see if that's going to happen and what are your plans for it. Thank you.
Sorry, bring back the
Grand Prix.
Oh, the Grand Prix Formula 1. I hope so.
Yeah, the Grand Prix before belonged to a certain friend of ours, Manny Nicholson. He has sold the company, so he belongs to someone else. But we find that despite the fact that we have decided not to hold the Grand Prix, the track itself is very busy. Lots of people come there, and they have races there, motorcycle races there, and lots of people who buy expensive cars, especially in Singapore. In Singapore, they don't have a chance to drive. But when they come on Malaysian roads, they feel that paying fines for breaking the speed limit is okay. So we have that. But some of them want to test on the track, and they pay us some money for it, and I think it is still very busy. But we intend to bring back the Grand Prix. I don't know whether it is next year or the year after, but we think that the interest in the Grand Prix is still very big, and we want to bring the race back here, because the race has stimulated Malaysians to go into the automotive industry, and people now buy all kinds of new cars because they have become addicted to their motor vehicles. So we think that by having the Grand Prix, we will be able to get spectators, more than 100,000, and that will be worthwhile for us. Besides that, of course, when we have the Grand Prix, the television stations show this all over the world, and something like 200 million people would be watching the Grand Prix, which is good advertisement for Malaysia. Thank you.
Do we have more questions on the floor? I can see a hand up over there. Would you like to stand up with your hand up? Yes.
congratulations on your first year again. Questions to you is, as a Malaysian, what can we do to help you?
Assimilation of well, the simple answer to that is to have one single school system. So everybody goes to the same school, they develop friends, and then they grow up, they know each other better. But then politics, democratic politics is such that you have to cater to lots of people, and some of them are very insistent that we should have 3 education systems, 3 languages in our schools, and they don't go to the same school and they don't meet each other. When they grow old and they have to work with people, other people, they find it very uncomfortable. But the best way to get people to come together is, of course, through education, going to the same school, the same universities. But that is not available at this moment. But what we want to do is we will bring 3 schools on one campus, and some common activities will be not related to the particular school, but all the 3 schools perhaps can form a football team, and they will contest not on the basis of or not on as representative of their school, but as a group based on some other criteria. Then at least they will play together, and of course when they have assemblies of the schools, all 3 would attend the same assembly. So we're trying to get them to be together again. Well, not again, but we would like them to be together at some stage in their life. Thank you.
We're coming to an end, but we've got quite enough time for one more question. There's, I can see 2 hands in the same place over there. So yeah, someone's got a microphone. So yeah, so you go ahead. Yes, sir.
Thank you. Tun, I'm going to steal this and ask 2 questions. Patrick Day from PwC. The first question is, Tun, can you advise what a country like Malaysia, see Rusa, if you like, in a very economically challenging world, what can we do? What economic roadmap can we take bila gajah berjuang? So the first question. Second one, the question about asking us what we can do to help. We've got many foreigners in the room. From a tourism perspective, what is the one place in Malaysia would you advise them to go for 4 or 5 days?
Sorry, we're struggling with the first question actually. Is it economic growth, we heard. But
First question is, we live in economically challenging times globally, and we have, if you like, big powers arguing with each other. So what can we do as a small country, a sea Rusa if you like, to actually cope with it?
Well, no doubt we are affected. But on the other hand, if we look at the positive side of this thing, perhaps if they are fighting each other, they're too busy to have investment in each other's country, so they will come to Malaysia to invest. We hope. But so far it's not happened yet. But I think trade wars are silly things. They don't benefit anyone at all. And the worst thing about these trade wars between 2 giants is that it affects the whole world, and it slows down the economic development of the world. So what can we do about it? We have to identify some labeling process basically to bring some industries to Malaysia, and maybe Chinese industries, but they will be made in Malaysia. Perhaps we can sell to the other party. But by and large, this trade war has a very negative effect on the economy of the country as well as the world. We will try to identify areas where we can go into, and I'm afraid that the Chinese investment into the country is going to grow, because they cannot invest in many other countries, so they will come here. And the
second one was tourism. Which place would you recommend for people to visit?
Well, is it going to a foreign country or coming to Malaysia? Well, we will have a lot of Chinese tourists, provided we can increase the processing, increase the speed of processing visas and things like that. But we are hoping that by 2020 we will have about 30 million tourists into Malaysia, one per head of population. But we are looking at China, of course, and also our neighbors. Singapore provides about 10 million tourists a year. If we can persuade Singapore to build a third bridge, we might get some benefit from that. And Indonesia is another source of tourists. But I think we are going to try and improve communication with many other countries. We are now getting a lot from Central Asia, where before we could not get any. And Central Asia can be a good source of tourists. But basically, the numbers will be provided by Singapore, by China, and a few of the countries in Asia. But for some reason or other, we are not getting American tourists. No American planes, a company flies to Malaysia. They fly to Singapore, but not to Malaysia. I have always wondered why. We are such nice people. Their investors come, we welcome them, but perhaps the investors can tell American people that we are a safe country. One or two terrorists have been caught, but otherwise we are a safe country and people can come here. There is no need for advisories against Malaysia, because that is a negative thing. I'm quite sure you come here for dinner, you feel for lunch, you feel quite safe. You don't expect, but in some countries, even as you are praying, they can kill you. So Malaysia is a good destination, even for Americans. So we hope more of them will come. Thank you.
We're about to run out of time, but one very last question. Everybody's dying to ask the question. Jolo, where is he? Are you going to get him back?
Well, we suspect he is in one country, but we cannot say it aloud because they might think that we are accusing them of hiding a criminal. That is not something that countries should do. We don't have extradition treaties with many countries. So Jolo may be anywhere in the world. But we have some suspicion as to where he is, but we'll work on that suspicion, but we will not be able to point fingers at anybody at this moment. Thank you.
So, Tun, just on behalf of AmCham, I'd like to thank you once again for gracing us with your presence, and hopefully you can come back again next year. So thank you very much, and thank you everybody for attending.